Today we're going to talk about how to manipulate photos in Photoshop. So this picture right here I have as my original image. I'm going to pull it out and show you what we will be doing today. So to pull out things in Photoshop, you click that tab at the top and just drag it out. This is a really neat way to compare photos or images especially if you're trying to get a similar feel from one image to another. So on the right, you'll see the original photo. If you would like to follow along with this tutorial, I will provide a link to that photo in the description below. So go ahead and grab that, pause this, grab that if you'd like to follow along. On the left, you'll see how we are going to edit the image. So we're going to reposition the castle. The castle is not complete. On the right, we're going to add in the castle. We're going to move our arms slightly up to accommodate. We are going to remove the railroad track through the middle of the photo, the bracelet on her arm, this little girl on the side, some people in the background. We're going to remove the scar on my arm, darken up my hair to reduce some frizz, and then give her a few more highlights. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Remember, grab that picture so that you can follow along. I'm going to redock these pictures by simply dragging until I see that blue line appear, and that will show me that I'm popping these back into place. So we're going to start with our original photo. Here it is. We automatically have a background layer that is locked. That's how every Photoshop file starts. The layers panel is a really crucial part of Photoshop, and I'll show you why. So the first thing that I want you to do is to duplicate this background layer by clicking and dragging it down over the plus sign, the bottom right corner of the panel, and then releasing. By doing that, you will create a background copy layer. We are going to unlock this background layer copy, and then we are going to hide. All I did was click on it to unlock it. Then we are going to hide the bottom background layer by clicking that little eyeball. So we've essentially created a backup copy that we're not going to adjust. So if we make any adjustments or errors that we don't like, we can always go back to the original that we've hidden and locked. Now that I've created the copy, we're going to double click to rename that layer. And I'm just going to call this one Disney. Once you have the Disney layer copy corrected, we're going to make some of the original adjustments to the picture. So I want you to start with your spot healing brush tool. That's about a quarter of the way down. Looks like a Band-Aid. You're going to click on that tool. And then the first thing you want to do is adjust the brush size. So my brush size is very small. I'm only seeing the crossbar. If you look in your control bar at the top, you'll see a drop-down arrow with a number next to it. This is going to show you your current brush size. So we can drag that slider or type in the number right here until you find a brush size you're comfortable with. The keyboard shortcut for doing this is your bracket keys. So above the Enter key on your keyboard, you'll see two bracket keys. The key on the left makes the brush smaller, and the key on the right makes the brush bigger. So once you find a brush size that you're comfortable with, you're going to go ahead and edit that scar off my arm. Now, a lot of people are tempted to click and drag with this brush tool. You really want to dot things out. So click multiple times instead of dragging, and that will give you the cleanest look. So we cleaned up my arm. We're going to clean off that bracelet on her arm. And then we're going to use the spot healing brush again for these people in the background between our shoulders. Now, the one exception for dotting things out is when you have a vertical line. So in order to get rid of this railroad track, we're really going to click and drag. So with that spot healing brush, we've now removed the spot on the back of my arm, the bracelet from her arm, the people crowding the castle, and this railroad track in the background. Next, we're going to take care of this little girl on the right side. So I want you to use the crop tool, that's the fifth tool down, and we are going to adjust this image slightly. Now, if your crop tool is not working effectively, you want to make sure your settings are correct. The easiest way to do this is by going to width by height by resolution in the control bar. Make sure that is set correctly. If it's set to one of the ratios, it will pop and it will just feel glitchy. So width by height by resolution, and then you'll see these 9 equal squares appearing. That's actually called rule of thirds. That's a crop option in your toolbar. It's also a photography principle. So in theory, wherever the crossbars are, that's where your eyes are naturally going to want to go in this picture. So if I wanted to make the most compelling photo, I might put this top right crossbar over the heart. And that way your eyes would go automatically to the heart. But because of what I want to teach you, I'm not going to do that today. We're just going to go ahead and click confirm. I didn't want to cut her arm off completely of the right side, so I do still have a little bit of the little girl. In order to get rid of that, we're going to need to create a selection. So I want you to go to your fourth tool down, which is your selection tool. We are going to now select the little girl with the selection tool. Now, the selection tool is very intuitive. There are multiple selection tools in Photoshop. This one is the quick selection tool. It's very intuitive, so it automatically assumes what you want to select and it goes to those places. Now, it selected automatically too much of the background. So I'm going to want to go in my control bar. You'll see it's automatically set to a plus sign. You want to click the minus sign in your control bar, and that's going to allow you to subtract portions of the selection. So you want to go anything that was selected that shouldn't have been, you're going to comb over that so that you just have the little girl as part of your selection. Once you have a selection you're comfortable with, by the way, selection tool keyboard shortcut is Alt. So if you hold down Alt, you can quickly switch between the plus sign and the minus sign as you're doing the selection. Now, once you have her selected, you're going to right click on the selection, and then you'll see the fill option. I want you to click fill, and we're going to leave everything as default. When I say that, I mean don't change anything to this dialog box. It should say content aware. Make sure all of this is set up how my screen shows, and then select OK. After your computer renders, you can see that the little girl was almost completely removed. Now, I do have some errors over here that were created with that, so we're going to go back to our spot healing brush, and we're going to touch up some of those errors along the side of the image. Now, along the bottom, I have this purple part that pulled over from her shirt. We're going to use a different tool to correct that. So I want you to go down a couple more from the spot healing brush and click the clone stamp tool. It looks just like a stamp. Now, if you automatically click on your picture, you'll get this error message. It says, cannot use the clone stamp tool, blah, 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 and you might be confused. What you really want to focus on here is that you have to Alt-click in order to define a source point. So what that means, this tool is automatically copying and pasting content simultaneously. So you want to tell the computer where to copy from. So if you hold down Alt and click on this ground over here, then we're going to go down a little bit and drag. Now you'll see my crossbar is pulling color, and the little circle where my brush is pasting that color. So we're copying and pasting over and over again repeatedly as we're doing this. And I'm just pulling that ground back into place. Now, if I want to do that to her shirt, I could go ahead and do it again for the purple color, and I could reinforce some of this purple on her shirt to give it a cleaner line. Now, the next time we're going to use this tool, I want you to go up to her hair. We're going to use the clone stamp tool again, and you can see I just zoomed in using my zoom tool. We're going to use that clone stamp tool again. This time, I'm going to use a smaller brush. So again, you can do it up in the control bar or use your bracket keys to make it a bit smaller. And then we're going to copy her highlight and then paste it simultaneously. So we're just going to make copies of these highlights in her hair. So I'm Alt-clicking here, and then I'm going to drag and try to allow my crossbar to follow along the highlight so I can create another element of her hair that looks almost identical. And then we're going to do it again. And hair isn't perfect, so it's okay if the highlight kind of drops off at a certain point, because that really happens naturally with hair anyways. So we don't want to overdo it, but after you've added a couple of highlights, then we're going to move on to my hair on the left side. I want you to now use the burn tool. So about 5 or so tools down, you'll see this tool that looks like fingers pinching each other. I want you to select that tool, and you're just going to comb over my hair with the burn tool. And you'll see it's actually getting darker as we're going, and that's exactly what we want. Now this tool, it's easy to overuse. You don't want to do it over and over again in the same spot, or it will start to look fake. So you just want to kind of keep an eye on where you're going and comb over the hair in streaks. This tool is also a little bit more beneficial if you have a bigger brush size, because you don't see the lines as much in the hair. So we're just going to comb over this until you're happy with it. I think that looks pretty nice. And then I'm going to double click my hand tool to reframe the photo. So far we have cleaned up the railroad track, the little girl, the spot on my arm, and the bracelet on her arm, those people in the background, and our hair. So we're going to move on at this point to the big thing, which is moving the hands upward. So before we do that, I want to make a copy of this layer so that if I need to go back, I can always go back easily. So you're going to click and drag the Disney layer down to the plus sign again to make a copy. And then I'm going to rename the Disney copy layer to Disney arms to show me that this is the one that I really want to focus on the arms with. First thing I want you to do is to activate the Disney layer. And when I say activate, I just mean click on it, select it. So activate the Disney layer, and we're going to select the arms now. So I want you to use your quick selection tool again. And we are going to select my arm and my hand along with her arm and her hand. Remember to use your plus and minus signs in the control bar if you need to refine your selection. Okay, once you have a selection that you are happy with, we're going to save this selection so that we can come back to it. I want you to go to Select in your menu bar, go down to Save Selection, and we're going to name this Arms. Then select OK, leave everything else as default, select OK, and you have the arms selected. So now even if I deselect, which deselect is Control D, even if I deselect, I can always pull this exact selection back up again, which is going to be really important as we move forward. So now I'm going to ask you to do something that's going to feel really off. I'm going to have you right click and then select Fill and click OK. Now you don't see anything that has happened so far, but if you hide the top layer, you'll now see that the arms have been removed from this layer. Control D, deselect, and you'll see Photoshop automatically filled in the top of the castle, which is really awesome because Photoshop is just really intuitive in that way. Now I want you to, so you can still kind of see our hands. So we're going to go to the spot healing brush and clean this up a little bit. You can use any of the tools that you'd like to clean it up, the spot healing brush or the clone stamp tool, anything that we've learned. And once you're happy with the cleanup, we're going to move on to the next step. So now that we've gotten the arms removed from this photo, we are going to make the top photo visible. And I need those arms selected again. So we're going to go up to our selection that we saved, go up to select in the menu bar, click load selection, and then next to channel, the drop-down arrow, we're going to click that arms channel that we saved and select OK. Now that our arms are brought back up, we can adjust these arms to move. So make sure you're on the right layer. You need to be on the Disney arms layer. And then we're going to go up in our menu bar to edit. We're going to click puppet warp. And then we're going to get this grid appearance over the arms. So in order to use this, we need to create points along the arms. So I'm going to automatically create a couple points right here along my wrist because I don't want this portion of my arm to move. It needs to stay hidden behind my hair. And then I'm going to do the same thing for her arm because I don't want this to move or be adjusted. So these two parts are going to be stationary. Then I need to create additional points that are okay to move. So I'm going to do at the top of our knuckles, our thumbs that are connected, and then her elbow because those are all natural points that might move in the image. If I start creating points in weird locations and pulling them out, I'm going to make this look really deformed and unnatural. So you want to stay with natural points in the image. So you want to make sure you're staying at natural points within the image. If you create one of these dots and you need to undo it, you put it at the wrong point, hold down Alt and click it again, and that will allow you to move that point. Once you have all of your dots appropriately placed, you're going to slightly move this up, and we're going to adjust it until it appears over the castle. Now we only want to do this slightly, not dramatically, because the photo still needs to look realistic. One thing to really make sure of while you're doing this picture is that the shadow on her hair does not look unnatural because part of her arm is actually blocked by her head. So we don't want to move this too much that it starts to look unrealistic. All right, once your points are all drawn, go ahead and click the confirm check at the top and Control D. All right, so most of this looks pretty good. We're going to need to then, with the spot healing brush on this layer, clean up some of those hands that are still in the background. So I'm going to go to my spot healing brush, and we need to clean up some of this background. So I'm going to go to my clone stamp tool, I'm going to copy some of the sky layer, and then I'm going to paint over this area right here. Just slightly cleaning it up. Remember, you're going to Alt-click to define the source where you're pulling from. You want to keep an eye on that crossbar to make sure you don't move it into an area that you don't really want to copy. All right, so there we have it. We have the arms adjusted, and you can see in my original photo, I did a slightly better job with this one, but as we pulled it over, you can see I could move the thumbs a little bit again with the puppet torp and get that a little bit more natural looking. For the most part, this is a pretty good quality of moving the hands upward. The last thing that I want to show you how to do is to create a bluer sky. So in order to do this, we're going to go on our layers panel and click that plus sign in the bottom right corner to create a new layer. We're going to click and drag that layer to the top so it's above all the other layers. And then we're going to rename it Sky. On this layer, I want you to use your brush tool, which is underneath your spot healing brush, and we're going to paint in that sky layer. So first thing you want to do is make sure you have a nice blue color selected. Double click on your foreground color in your tools panel. That's that top square in the bottom left corner. You're going to select a blue with your color picker. Click and drag that dot around to select a blue that you like, and then select OK. Once you have the blue selected, use your bracket keys to resize your brush, and we're going to paint over the sky back and forth. You can go right over those flags. We do not need this to be perfect. We're just going to cut in, and then I'm going to make my brush size a little bit smaller so that I can get into some of these other spaces. Like I said, it doesn't need to be perfect, but try to make it close. Once we have the majority of the sky selected, we're going to change the blend mode. So at the top of the layers panel, you can see it says normal right here. I want you to select that drop-down arrow and select the different options to see how it changes the sky. My favorite blend mode is always soft light, so I'm going to stick with that one. And there we have a much bluer, brighter sky. Now you see I could go back and undo this and cut in a little bit closer over here because I saw that error, then change it back to soft light. But for the most part, here we have a picture where we moved the arms, we brightened up the sky, we just made the image look slightly more magical, but still within the realm of realism. I hope you had a great time with this tutorial. Comment with anything else that you'd like to learn.